Hi Mario, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Ranjeet?
Wonderful. So what do we have today?
Absolutely. The featured question is, what are some often overlooked sources of evidence that could strengthen an EB1 case, particularly for categories like original contribution or critical roles?
Overlooked sources. Yes, I mean it's a very interesting thing because sometimes what we have seen this in our program, this would come more at nurture stage actually, wherein people do realize that what they have been doing. People we all have 5 years, 10 years, 15 years of work experiences. That what we might have done into the whole work, we may feel ourselves as a small nut or screw in the overall scheme of things, but the impact that we might have created might be very huge or very big actually. So let's say, for example, I will give you a very classical case. We had this gentleman working with one of the leading telecom companies, and the company had created a subsidiary that eventually got spun off as a separate company, and it was offering solutions, and it had a valuation of $200 million. He subsequently was never part of that company, but he was the one who created the paperwork, who did all the formalities for that particular company. Now, what happens is that we presented the case to USCIS. We worked with the lawyer. We kind of offered an input that, well, the very fact, the creation of the company towards the contribution of that itself is an original contribution. Now, this is some kind of a work that could potentially, we don't realize that this could be an ignored, or somebody could just like kind of overlook this kind of a work that might happen. Now, second thing is, let's say, testimonial from industry leaders who, you see, who could potentially give you. One of the things that one has to realize that for the purpose of EB1A, the act of doing something is not necessarily important. What is more important is what has been the impact of that work. So if you give testimonial from industry leaders, that would really be very fruitful. Now, sometimes, there are policy changes in the governments, and if you can connect the impact of your work and the policy that has been changed, that is also an original contribution because your work did impact the field. Uh, when it comes to original contribution, Mario, I think people often mistake this, that there has to be some kind of a, uh, if I may use the word, some kind of a output that has to create an impact. Output can be just a work product itself actually, and the impact could be in can manifest itself in several ways. So most of the people whom we have come to us, we have seen that the original contribution can come either from a scholarly article. In fact, we had this one particular guy who was, I mean, he did a research article, and in fact, the USCIS gave an RFE to this particular person, indicating that well, we don't see enough scholarly, kind of an impact of this, or this. This is nothing so scholarly, is for learned persons, and it doesn't fit the bill essentially. In fact, the argument was made that we might like to agree that this is not a scholarly article, but in fact, we strongly opine that this could potentially be an original contribution. Because one of the things that we said was it is an original contribution simply because uh, he had recently got a new job with almost 100% raise in the salary, and the new employer actually had read his article. In it may not have citations, but it had kind of, and they wanted to implement the concepts what he was speaking about. So even that could potentially become an original contribution if you have collaborated with somebody in your research or with prestigious institutions. That could potentially be, if you have created a kind of a joint venture or a tie-up with your company. So it could manifest in several ways. Now, for critical role, there was a company where you have been working and you have played a very necessary role or a critical role for a crisis management initiatives. You executed a particular strategy. The board of management accepted that. Uh, you did some mentoring for the team that resulted in major output for the company. Now, for this, please understand the metrics for the success have to be clearly explained in that particular criteria. Actually, in that evidence is what you are giving. The letters of recommendations or something that you put up have to be very, very clear. I know this is not a topic that we can get over in even just 5 minutes or 3 minutes of discussion, but this is a very intense, and at many of the times what we have seen is that people don't realize the power or the impact of their work that they have been doing for several decades also at times. And that's the reason I strongly feel that, you know, that somebody, you are on H1B here, you are waiting for your priority date. There is definitely something that can be picked up from your success that could potentially serve for your EB1A purposes, actually. So that's all I have to say at this particular moment, because this is a topic that is very dear to my heart, and I have seen the best of the best works that people have been doing, but they don't realize that this could possibly help for their EB1A green card applications.
Certainly. Well, I think, given the time constraint, I think you answered that pretty well. The next question is from Anonymous. It says, how do you recommend strategizing timelines for preparing and filing the EB1A petition to ensure the strongest case?
Now, I have one confession to make here, Mario. I mean, when we talk of strategizing timelines, I always feel that first you have to become a person of excellence. You know, when you apply for EB1A green card, essentially you are trying to tell the person in the White House saying that, look, you know, I'm Mario, I'm expert in so and so field, I'm the best coach, and this is my expertise, this is how I will help the USA, and I wish to continue in my field. Now, don't try to take benevolence of time or try to seek a benevolence of time, because that is not something that helps. What you need to do is focus on you becoming first and expert in your field. That's the most important thing that one needs to do. Please understand that. If you are not an expert, you are not any material. So just pushing yourself, because this brings us another topic that, what are the criteria that you use for? The criteria are simply metrics to prove your expertise and to showcase that you will continue in the field and how US will benefit out of it. That's the only thing. So understand, I think I have been saying this a lot of time to our students, that when it comes to EB1A, there are 3 dimensions for your success. The first parameter becomes you have to be an expert. You may not have a Nobel Prize or something like that, but you still have to academically be very clear of the concepts of your expertise. That's the first and foremost thing. If you are not there yet, please study, please work. It's not about documentations that will make you this, because you get letter that somebody is an expert and he's Ranjeet Mudholkar is the best financial planner in the world. No, that is not going to help you. The question is, you have to answer how you are the best planner, why you are interested, why you chose that subject. So there are a lot of elements that go into this, and you really have to be technically sound, if I may use the word. The technical soundness is very important. Many people come to us and say, I fulfill 2 criteria. Now I just need a third one. Or that is not going to work, actually, because the criteria don't help. We have seen people even with 8 criteria are not getting EB1A at times. People with $2 million salary are not getting EB1A. There are a lot of posts. After having studied over 1,000 cases, after having met at least 100 people who are EB1A achievers, I told them we have 40 of them in our own program also. It simply may not be very fruitful actually here. So never try to seek a benevolence of time. But yes, you can always commit yourself to a calendar, to a schedule, to a time boxing techniques, or committing yourself to certain schedule to target to learn something. But yes, having said all the things put together, Mario, I think we know for sure that we have seen people. If I kind of had to study my own research on EB1A, it took 2 years for me and close to 400 hours. But if I have that information today, I could have completed this in 6 to 7 months, which many people in our program are able to accomplish. But time should not be your criteria. I think focus on the initiatives, which is the foremost important, I would say. That I hope this is a long answer, but I hope that answers it.
Absolutely. So our next question is from Anonymous. Is what's the best way to gather and present evidence for judging the work of others, especially if the evaluations weren't formal or well documented?
I think judging is something that is, normally we have seen that many people are able to navigate through the process actually here. But the evidence, when we talk about, we need to have some examples to illustrate this particular point. When you are saying that it was not a formal, it's not about formal or well documented, it's about the official nature of it also. Suppose if you were interviewed, you interviewed some people for recruitment, and your company invited you, and it was not really a part of your job. You were invited because you have certain expertise that could help maybe the other department. Let's say that. And it was, it was not about very formal. Doesn't mean that actually. I don't want to subscribe to this a formal word here, because that's not a very good word here. Everything has to be formal. Let's be clear about it. I mean, unway. Documented, yes. One can always if let us say I have been privy to certain interview, and I created certain, I was part of a process. So suppose if I'm working in marketing department, and the sales department or maybe an HR department invited me to get people for accounts department, let us say that I have certain level of expertise in my field that can help the company. Now, one can always get letter of recommendation for this particular purpose. Otherwise, when did you do this? There might have been certain documentation or email records that proved that you were invited. Some kind of evidences are required, definitely. I do not want to subscribe to the fact, Mario, that it was not a formal, it was not something that you're walking in a parking lot and somebody just invited you and you started taking interviews and then you want to use it for your EB1A. It doesn't work like this. It has to be on your calendar. I mean, as simple as that. There is some work that was pre-planned, scheduled. There was a communication exchange. Certain models were prepared. You can't just, say that it was never a formal, but I want for EB1A. You need to kind of not use this. It has to be, at least that's why I said I don't like the word formal, because everything is formal when it comes to EB1A. If it has to be documented. If not, you can create a retrospective, a letter of recommendations or something like that. I know this may not please many people, but I think it's important actually.
Absolutely. Well, our next one is going to be from Anonymous. They say, what are the best ways to demonstrate that my work has been widely used, cited, or referenced by others in my field?
Okay, now, it is not about only cited by others or impacted. Because of the work that you have done, there could be potentially be some licensing agreement that your company has done or you would have done with somebody. That itself shows that there is a value to your work that you have been doing. You could get some kind of an endorsement from the people. It's not only for EB1A. Let's also understand that people might have given it to you suo moto also, that, oh, I happen to see your work and it's really wonderful. This could be 2 years back, somebody may have sent it to you. So you have to gather those evidences and use it for the purpose of your EB1A. Now, and you see, it's not something that everything has to be focused towards EB1A, has to be kind of addressed to USCIS. It is not important. In fact, a neutral stand, a neutral position in this particular case would be far better as well, actually. In fact, we had one student of ours from a clinical trial, actually, and she had written some kind of a white paper. And that white paper was very well appreciated, actually. So, I think she received some 15 to 20 letters that were sent to her, addressed to her, not to USCIS also. And it came from employees from large corporations. It came from the government agencies. It came from a lot of other academic institutions on the nature of the white paper that was done, and it holds a very strong value. Now, those are some kind of an endorsements which are very important. I already gave you an example earlier in earlier question that there was some research paper that was written where USCIS actually sent an RFE, and we said that, okay, we agree that this is not a scholarly article, but actually an original contribution. And there was some adoption by one of the leading technical firms which said that we are going to implement it. So that is something which is very good evidences. If your work has been mentioned in some government reports, which is very good. If there is a media article, if your work becomes a case study in some academic institutions, okay, and then there is a collaboration request that happens from some companies. Now, these are evidences that can demonstrate that your work product or your work has been widely used, cited, or referenced by others in your field of expertise. And that's the best way to do forward. I mean, as I mentioned to you, one of the strongest points that you have for the purpose of your EB1A is that you are an acclaimed expert who has risen to the top of his field. That's very important. Okay?
Absolutely.
So what do we have
Well,
next? I think let's take a last question actually for the day.
yeah, of course. I think this is it's a great question to end it on. This is from Anonymous. It says, how do I prepare for potential follow-up questions or requests for evidences, RFEs, from the USCIS that could challenge my qualifications?
Well, I don't like RFEs. In our program, out of close to 40 people who got EB1A, I mean, unfortunately, we got only 2 or 3 RFEs. But yes, it was more from a premises that some documents were inadvertently left out in one case and some arguments had to be given. So your RFEs would essentially be depend on only 2 things. I would say that, Mario, as I said, the first is you missed out certain documents being given. And second thing, your legal arguments were not proper. Now, for these 2 things, you have to work very closely with a lawyer. You have to give your lawyer the best evidences. That's the first and foremost thing. So when you work with your lawyer, there are cases where there is a lot of, if I may use the word, turbulence that happens. You keep on changing documents, you keep on sending the documents to the lawyer, and then you keep on revising. There is a point of time where you should reach that it should be all whatever you can submit. So once you give it to your lawyer, I think lawyers do a fantastic job in terms of assimilating them together to create a very strong argument. If you get an RFE, if it is regarding an documentation, then you should always give the simple way to give it the simple documentation. Maybe let us say I give you an example that your work has been kind of there is some kind of a collaboration request that you have received. You have mentioned that in the letter or in the argument or in your petition, but there is no evidence to that. Then you might like to send a simple email that you might have received or certain kind of a documentation that proves that there was a request for collaboration. So these are the ways you should do it. Ideally, I don't like RFEs actually. I like to I have always we have been trained people get trained in our program to kind of make sure that they make their petitions bulletproof and ironclad. And that's the word I like to use for your EB1A petitions. Somebody should, after having looked at your petitions, should love to give you in next 15 minutes. That's the kind of impact of the petition that we want to do for your case. And so that's all I have for this particular question. So thanks a lot to Mario for meeting today. And friends, if you have any questions, please write to Mario or I. We'll be more than happy to kind of respond to you. And it would be wonderful to kind of help you. It will be wonderful to kind of have you in case you want to become EB1A and kind of join the Next League program. Please reach out to us. Thank you very much and have a wonderful day. Thank you for joining us today. If you have any further questions or need personalized guidance, please reach out to us. We are here to help you every step of the way in your journey towards achieving your American dream. Let's connect and make it happen together.